Have you ever imagined dying for a few minutes and coming back with a direct warning from God about the future of humanity? That's exactly what happened to the protagonist of this unbelievable story. He had a near-death experience and received a shocking revelation about what will happen on February 24th, 2025. Before we start, comment here from which city you are watching this video. I want to know how far this message is reaching. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, sign up now and activate the bell so you don't miss any content like this. Now, get ready, because what you're about to hear could change your outlook on everything. I remember it like it was yesterday. The sky heavy with clouds, the rain pounding hard, and the adrenaline running wild through my veins. On that gray afternoon in Denver, Colorado, I was about to experience something that would change my life forever. I know Zephyr Hawthorne was only 17 years old, but I already felt deep inside the desire to challenge limits. Off-road motorcycling was my passion, and that day seemed perfect for another extreme adventure. The atmosphere was heavy, and the rain turned the familiar trails into a treacherous mud field. My friend Chase Montgomery, always the instigator of our adventures, was excited, laughing and shouting, "Come on, Zephyr! Today is the day to do something memorable." I hesitated for a moment when I heard an inner voice that urged me to be careful, an almost imperceptible whisper that said, "Slow down, think carefully." But youthful enthusiasm spoke louder, and with a defiant smile, I replied, "Don't worry, Chase. Today I'm going to push the limits." Without me realizing it, my words were an invitation to danger. As I accelerated along the muddy trail, I felt the force of nature uniting with my motorcycle's engine. Every drop of rain seemed to intensify the emotion of the moment. The noise of the engine mixed with the sound of the rain and Chase's laughter, who followed close behind. We reached a critical point on the trail, where a great leap opened before us, as if destiny itself wanted to test our courage. The jump was bigger than any I had ever attempted. Uncertainty mixed with excitement as he accelerated, the wind hitting his face. The moment I reached the top of the jump, the world seemed to slow down. A moment of absolute silence enveloped me, and at that very moment, the treacherous mud reached me. I felt the bike slipping uncontrollably, as if the ground was rebelling against my boldness. Everything happened so quickly. The impact, the feeling of free fall, the deafening sound of hitting the earth. I remember hearing the bang and, at the same time, feeling a sharp pain shoot through my head. "Zephyr!" Chase shouted, his voice thick with panic and disbelief. But the words were lost in the chaos of that moment. My body was thrown violently, and reality became a blur. The world around me swirled in a spiral of colors and shadows, until suddenly everything went dark. The feeling of total loss of consciousness was inexplicable. My friends ran to me, their faces lined with worry. I remember the desperate touch of Chase's hands trying to wake me up, and the anxious words of other friends, which mixed with the sound of the rainy environment. "Zephyr, please agree." Time seemed to stretch into an agonizing eternity, and for a few moments, everyone believed I was gone forever. 3 minutes passed, but for me, it was like an eternity of darkness. Then something inexplicable happened. I felt a sudden tug, a shift that woke me up from the abyss. I opened my eyes with difficulty, and, amidst the confusion, I realized that I was still breathing. My world, which a moment ago seemed to have disappeared, began to take shape again. Chase, with tears in his eyes, whispered, relieved, "You're back, man. You're back." Still dizzy and with a throbbing pain in my head, I realized that my reality had changed. There, in the middle of the rain and mud, I had defied death and returned, even if, for a brief moment, to tell this story. Every detail of that accident, every sound and every word was engraved in my memory, marking the beginning of a journey that I could never have imagined. When darkness took hold of me, I felt like I was falling into an endless abyss. Amidst the void, my consciousness wandered in a dimension where time was of no importance. Suddenly, everything transformed. I felt that my spirit detached itself from my inert body, and, as if I were a spectator, I could observe the scene that had happened a few moments ago. There I was, motionless, lying on the mud-soaked ground, while Chase and the others struggled in despair. It was at that moment that a feeling of peace began to infiltrate me. contrasting with the chaos that was still happening below. In a whirlwind of emotions, I felt that, by disconnecting from my body, I gained a broader and more serene perspective. Without explanation, a soft, childish voice echoed in my mind. "Zephyr, we need to go now," said the tone, mixing urgency and sweetness in an inexplicable way. As I looked for the source of that voice, I noticed a figure approaching, the silhouette of a being with the appearance of a child of around 10 years old emerged from the shadows. He wore an immaculate white robe, which reflected the light even in the dim light, and a golden crown that sparkled ethereally. My senses heightened, and in that instant, everything around me seemed suspended, as if the entire universe was waiting for the next action. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice still choked with emotion and wonder. "I am Evan," replied the being, with a look that conveyed knowledge and compassion at the same time. "There is no time to waste. The devil is coming." Those words sounded like an alarm in the midst of the illusory tranquility that was beginning to envelop me. As Evan spoke, I could feel an oppressive presence approaching. Turning around, I saw, on the periphery of my consciousness, a dense, threatening shadow. It was as if a cloud of sadness and pain materialized, silently advancing towards me, charged with an energy so heavy it seemed to defy existence itself. "Don't be scared, Zephyr," Evan said, extending his delicate but firm hand, which glowed with a comforting light. "Come with me. We need to get out of here before this darkness completely envelops us." I hesitated for a moment, still stunned by the surreality of the situation. The contrast between Evan's purity and the approaching evil aura was striking. With my heart racing, I accepted the invitation. I felt as if I was being pulled away, a feeling of weightlessness washing over me as my ethereal body fell further away from physical reality. As we climbed, Evan's words kept echoing in my mind. "The devil is coming." His voice, although soft, carried the firm conviction of someone who knows the secrets of the universe. I, who had once defied death with youthful recklessness, now found myself immersed in a journey that surpassed the limits of human understanding. Every movement, every pulse of light that emanated from the angel made me believe that I was being led away from imminent danger to a place where love and divine protection manifested themselves with all their intensity. As we drove away, the physical world became a distant and almost irrelevant memory. The emptiness that once haunted me was now filled with promises and inexplicable hope. The meeting with Evan, with his wisdom and urgency, marked the beginning of a new stage in my existence, a journey that would take me along paths I never imagined I would travel. As Evan and I walked away from the place where life and death intertwined, a sense of unease began to set in. The lightness of our flight contrasted with the chill that ran down my spine, an omen that something terrible was approaching. The vastness of the void seemed to hide dark secrets, and with every beat of my heart, I felt that danger was not as far away as it seemed. Amidst the immensity of darkness, while Evan's soft light illuminated only a fraction of the way, an ominous presence began to form. I saw it first as a speck of shadow, a distortion in the air that pulsed with a biting cold. Slowly, the figure took shape, revealing a human silhouette, but wrapped in a black cloak that seemed to suck in all the light around it. Its outlines were indistinct, almost as if it were fading and reappearing at disjointed intervals. "Zephyr, stand firm," Evan warned in a firm but compassionate voice. I tried to process his words as the entity approached. His aura was oppressive, a mix of pain and despair that made reality itself tremble. I could feel an inexplicable cold that invaded my bones, and with every step she took, the world seemed to shrink, as if space was being swallowed by an unrelenting force. As I met the creature's gaze, a wave of dread and sadness swept through my soul. His eyes, hidden in the shadows of the hood he wore, shone with an almost hypnotic intensity, suggesting that each look was a promise of suffering. "What do you want from me?" I managed to ask, my voice wavering between despair and disbelief. The answer came not in words, but in a deafening silence that spoke of ages of anguish and loneliness. For a brief moment, time seemed to stretch indefinitely as the entity floated closer, its movements precise and calculated. Evan, sensing the terror that consumed me, raised his protective hand and said with conviction, "This shadow is the manifestation of what we call the Forgotten One, a spirit trapped between darkness and pain. It was sent to capture vulnerable souls, to keep them from the light." The explanation hung in the air, as cold as the wind that seeped through the gaps in the universe. The creature extended its slender fingers, and for an instant, I felt as if the very air had been cut off by its malevolent presence. His energy seemed to feed on fear, and each pulse of his essence caused the world around him to shake in agony. "We can't let him reach us," Evan said urgently, his voice now becoming an anchor of hope. I tried to step back, but the feeling that I was being dragged by an invisible force prevented me from moving. Every fiber of my being screamed for freedom, for an escape from this terrifying encounter. However, the determination on Evan's face gave me the certainty that, together, we could face this threat. The entity, sensing our resistance, accelerated its approach. Their movements were like dancing shadows, unpredictable and threatening. I felt the weight of his presence becoming almost tangible, pressing down on me, trying to erode my will to live. In a last-ditch effort of courage, I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, trying to focus on the comforting light emanating from Evan. It was as if, for a brief moment, all the darkness was dispelled by a wave of positive energy. The confrontation between light and shadow took place in that space between life and death, and I knew that, at that moment, my soul was on the verge of a crucial choice. After the tense encounter with the dark entity, I felt that reality itself expanded, transforming what was familiar into something almost mystical. Evan, with his serene expression, led me away from the confrontation, and soon everything around me began to dissolve into a spiral of colors and lights. As we ascended, the darkness was gradually replaced by a tapestry of twinkling glows. Each star seemed to tell a story, each planet a kept secret of time. I, Zephyr, felt like I was floating not only in space, but also between dimensions, as if the universe was unfolding in layers of reality never before imagined. "Look, Zephyr, see how the universe unfolds before our eyes," Evan exclaimed, with a fascinated smile. I, still in disbelief at the transformation that was unfolding, replied, "It's as if I were seeing the very essence of existence, an ocean of possibilities." With each instant, the speed increased, and the Earth became a mere bright point, distant and almost insignificant. The feeling of heaviness was completely replaced by an indescribable lightness, as if I were free from all physical and emotional ties. During this journey, we passed colorful nebulae, asteroid fields that sparkled like scattered jewels, and planets whose shapes defied the imagination. The colors, intense and vibrant, danced in perfect harmony, and every detail seemed to have been sculpted by divine hands. In the midst of this spectacle, I realized that I was not just traveling through space. I was walking a path of self-knowledge, where every light and every shadow reflected parts of my own soul. "Feel this energy, Zephyr," Evan said, as he pointed to a spiral galaxy that opened up like a swirl of colors. "This is the pulse of the cosmos, the vibrant heart of creation." I closed my eyes for a moment, allowing that energy to invade every cell of my being. When they reopened, the landscape had changed again. Before us, a majestic structure rose, radiating a golden light that seemed to call out to me. It was heaven. The vision of heaven was something that could never be described with simple words. A kingdom where pain and suffering were unknown, where love and peace reigned supreme. It was as if all the colors of the universe had come together in a harmonious spectacle, filling the space with a sense of comforting warmth and belonging. As we got closer, I could see shapes and silhouettes of beings floating in perfect tranquility, each one emanating an aura of pure serenity. "This is heaven, Zephyr," Evan said, his voice thick with emotion and reverence. "Here, there are no limits to compassion and light." I walked, or rather, floated towards this new world, feeling the energy that emanated from it purify every thought and feeling. Each step, or its equivalent in space, was marked by a feeling of rebirth, as if every cell in my body was filled with a vitality I had never known. As I entered this paradise, soft voices of beings of light greeted me, recognizing the journey I had taken. Amid the immensity of the place, I felt a peace that surpassed any earthly experience. It was a moment of deep connection, where time seemed suspended, and each moment turned into eternity. As I advanced through the celestial splendor, I felt as if each step into the unknown was guided by an ineffable force. Amid this scene of pure light and serenity, my eyes caught something extraordinary to my left, an immense podium of resplendent marble, on which rested a colossal book, bound in golden details that sparkled with the energy of the universe itself. The podium emanated an aura of mystery and solemnity. As I approached, two beings of light appeared, floating in silence next to the book. His features, ethereal and at the same time radiant, suggested accumulated wisdom from countless ages. One of them, with eyes that seemed to contain the depth of the secrets of the cosmos, addressed me in a soft voice. "Zephyr, why are you here?" Confused and amazed, I sat, or rather, floated in front of them, trying to absorb every detail of that environment where time seemed to dissolve. My heart was racing, not with fear, but with an almost reverential expectation. I knew I was facing something bigger than myself, something that transcended mere earthly existence. As the beings of light carefully opened the book, I could see that its pages seemed to pulse with a life of their own. On each sheet, a series of names, dates, and destinations were recorded with divine precision. The characters shone and shaped themselves according to the light, revealing stories of lives, loves, losses, and rebirths. I felt that that book was not just a record, but the true diary of the destiny of every soul that ever was and ever would be. With a calm that contrasted with the intensity of everything that was occurring, one of the beings pointed to a specific page and said, "This book contains the record of each being who is destined to move on to the next cycle." My trembling hands seemed to reach out involuntarily, wanting to touch those pages that carried so much meaning. However, the voice of the other being interrupted. "Zephyr, please note, today is not your day. Your name is not among those who must leave on this journey." The words echoed in the silence of the room, and a mixture of relief and perplexity came over me. As I leafed through the pages beside me, I saw, engraved in an almost symbolic way, a date that indicated my death, a distant but inevitable destiny. This vision, although disturbing, awakened in me a greater understanding. I had a mission to fulfill on earth, a chance to learn and make a difference. Silent tears formed in my eyes as I absorbed the reality that was presented to me. At the same time, a part of me wanted to remain in that place where peace reigned supreme, where every pain was forgotten and love filled every corner of my being. But logic, mixed with the revelation of the great divine plan, insisted that my journey was not yet over. The beings of light, with an almost maternal delicacy, explained to me that my destiny was intertwined with a great purpose, the spiritual transformation and awareness that was approaching on earth. "You have been chosen to return, Zephyr," said one of them, with a voice that brimmed with compassion and determination. "There is a greater plan that needs to be fulfilled, and your presence on earth is essential to awaken sleeping souls." As I absorbed those words, I felt a tightness in my chest, a mix of resignation and hope. The book, with all its secrets, reminded me that life was a tangle of choices and consequences. The decision to return, however painful it might be, was also the opportunity to follow a path of learning, redemption, and service to humanity. While floating in that realm of light, I was led down a corridor of pure energy to an immense hall, the grandeur of which surpassed any earthly conception. The room seemed to be sculpted from the very essence of time. Radiant white walls, adorned with golden details that sparkled like distant stars, and a ceiling that was lost in an immensity of soft light. In the center of this space, on a high throne, was the figure I would never have imagined encountering, God. I felt my heart quicken, not out of fear, but out of indescribable awe. As I approached, the atmosphere was filled with an immense calm, as if every atom in the air vibrated in tune with the divine presence. God sat with a serene posture, wrapped in a white robe that seemed to have been woven from the very light of the universe. His eyes, deep and compassionate, reflected both the strength of a supreme power and the unconditional love of an entity that knew every corner of my soul. "Zephyr, God's voice echoed through the hall with a timbre that combined tenderness and authority. "Come, sit next to me for a moment." I obeyed as if my legs no longer belonged to me. As I sat down, I felt a comforting warmth invade my being. God placed his hand on my head, and in an instant, a flood of images and emotions began to flow into my mind. It was as if my entire life unfolded before my eyes. Every mistake and success, every laugh and tear, shone with a clarity that left me breathless. As I absorbed every detail of this revelation, God began to speak. "I see a journey full of light and shadow in you, Zephyr. Your choices have shaped your path, but there is still much to happen. Today, I show you a vision of the future." In a flash of colors and symbols, I was transported to a setting that seemed to be an extension of my own destiny. A few years later, I found myself facing a new ordeal, a serious neck injury that would leave me paraplegic. The image was so vivid that I could feel, even if distantly, the pain and limitation it would bring. In the midst of that vision, I also noticed the presence of an unborn baby who would need to take care of me in the future. A feeling of impotence mixed with the urgency of that revelation as the father's figure slowly disappeared, leaving a void that symbolized abandonment. "Why is that?" I managed to murmur, with a trembling voice, trying to understand the reason for such an ordeal. God looked deeply into my eyes and responded with moving sincerity. "Every scar, every challenge, Zephyr, serves to teach and strengthen. Your journey will not be free from suffering, but it is through suffering that the spirit is transformed. You carry a greater mission, and these challenges will teach you to love and care, not just for yourself, but for those who cross your path." The vision then dissipated, but the words resonated in my heart. In a last act of compassion, and aware of my anguish, I pleaded, "If it is my destiny to return, I ask that you heal at least my neck, so that my future son does not have to bear the burden of my suffering." God inclined his head in a gesture of understanding, and with a soft but firm voice, he declared, "The cure will be given, but I will leave a scar. This mark will be a reminder of the choices and learning that life will provide you. May she serve as your strength and guide." Emotion flooded every fiber of my being. The vision of the future, the challenges that awaited me, and the acceptance of the divine plan merged into a feeling of resignation and hope. As I arose from that sacred encounter, I realized that my mission was just beginning. Every scar I would bear would be a symbol of courage, redemption, and a life destined to impact the world with love and truth. Still immersed in the aura of divine presence, as God's words resonated in my mind, a new atmosphere began to form around me. The room subtly transformed, and a pulsating light began to emerge from a corner I hadn't noticed before. A feeling of urgency took over me, as if the universe itself wanted to reveal something of extreme importance to me. "Zephyr," echoed a soft and imposing voice, unlike any I had ever heard. "Pay attention. Time approaches a crucial point in human history." As I turned, I saw God reach toward an infinite window that opened to a spectacular view. The earth, enveloped in a blue and golden glow, seemed to breathe a new, vibrant energy. At that exact moment, a date appeared on the celestial horizon, February 24th, 2025. Each number pulsed with a deep and inevitable meaning. As my eyes focused on that date, God began to explain in a calm voice, "From that day on, a spiritual transformation of unimaginable proportions will occur. Portals of light will open upon the earth, and the planet's vibration will rise, awakening sleeping souls and bringing to light truths that have been kept in the shadows for too long." The image before me was enriched with scenes that defied all logic. I saw crowds gathering in squares and streets, their eyes shining with anticipation and hearts pulsing with renewed energy. There was a collective sense of awakening, as if each person had suddenly connected to a vital part of the universe. "But why now?" I asked, my voice full of emotion and curiosity. God responded, as the vision showed global leaders and powerful groups moving tensely, as if sensing imminent change. The controllers of the world fear this awakening. For years, they kept humanity in ignorance to retain their power. However, the accumulated energy can no longer be contained. On February 24th, 2025, the truth will reveal itself, and the portals of light will allow the world to see beyond illusions. As God spoke, the scenery around me was filled with flashes of intense images, vibrant cities being enveloped by pure light, faces surprised and, at the same time, hopeful, and a nature that seemed to exult in new life. In every corner of the vision, tiny particles of energy gathered to form complex patterns, as if they were the fingerprints of destiny itself. You, Zephyr, were chosen to carry this message, God continued firmly, as my mind flooded with conflicting emotions. Your experience and your journey are testimony that awakening is possible. Take this truth to those who still live in the shadows so that they are prepared for the transformation that is approaching. The vision intensified, and I could feel the vibration of each word as if time itself was speeding up towards a new chapter. The date engraved on the horizon was not just a time frame, it was a symbol of hope and spiritual revolution. With each word, the room vibrated in unison, making my heart beat faster, and the feeling that the destiny of humanity was about to change became almost palpable. Remember, Zephyr, God whispered as the image began to fade. The transformation is coming, and you have a vital role to play. With those last words echoing within me, the vision slowly dissipated, leaving me with the responsibility and weight of a mission that now seemed as inevitable as the sunrise. After the revealing experience with the date and the divine message, I felt it was time to return. The descent, however, was not like the ascent. It was abrupt, intense, and full of contrasting sensations. The universe, which moments before seemed like a dance of light and infinite possibilities, began to transform into a vortex of heat and movement. I felt my ethereal body being pulled towards something familiar and at the same time distant, Earth. As we descended, the atmosphere went from heavenly calm to vibrant, almost palpable energy. Every moment, the colors of the space merged and transformed into a spectacle of warm, earthy tones. I could hear the rising sound of the atmosphere, a murmur that heralded the approach of the physical world. Evan, still at my side, seemed to share my apprehension and, with a calm look, whispered, "Zephyr, get ready. We are about to return." "I feel the heat and pressure," I replied, my voice choked with emotion, as if the earth itself wanted to envelop me. The environment became more and more intense, and when I finally broke through the atmosphere barrier, a wave of heat enveloped me. I felt as if 1,000 warm rays of sunlight were caressing my skin, awakening a sense of belonging that contrasted with the distant cold of the space. The feeling was simultaneously comforting and painful, as if life itself reminded me of its duality. Opening my eyes, I found myself back in my body, lying in a hospital bed, surrounded by the anxious faces of Chase, Dr. Nolan Sinclair, and others who still couldn't believe what they witnessed. The room exuded a silent tension, but also a relieved joy. After all, I had returned. Chase, with shaking hands, approached and murmured, "Zephyr, you're back." I forced a smile, even though my body was still marked by the intense pain in my neck, and replied, "Yes, I'm here." But something inside me changed forever. While medical examinations revealed that there were no serious injuries, the truth was in every scar, in every painful pulse that recalled the transcendental experience. In the silence of the room, memories of the heavenly journey mixed with earthly reality, and I felt a new consciousness emerging, a consciousness that surpassed the ordinary and expanded beyond the limits of the physical. That night, lying alone, I meditated on the meaning of everything I had experienced, the images of heaven, the presence of God, the visions of an uncertain future, and the divine mission formed a complex and powerful mosaic. I realized that my return was not a mere coincidence, but the beginning of a profound personal transformation. The pain in my neck became a sacred reminder of choices and consequences, and the new awareness that dawned within me revealed the responsibility to share the message of spiritual awakening. "My life now has a new purpose," I whispered to myself, "and each scar is a meditation, a symbol of the journey that transformed me." As dawn progressed, the silence of the hospital was filled with a feeling of rebirth. With each breath, I felt the earth's energy pulse through my being, as if the planet was welcoming me back and preparing me for the challenges to come. This new consciousness, forged in the heat of return, was the flame that would light my path and guide my next actions. Back on Earth, the experience I had transformed not only how I saw the world, but also who I was. In the days following my return, life in Denver seemed to have taken on a new hue, as if every color, every sound, and every smell carried a deep meaning. I was no longer just Zephyr Hawthorne, the young man passionate about off-road adventures. Now, I was the bearer of a message that transcended everyday life. In the mornings, as I walked the city streets, each step resonated with renewed purpose. The sun that was rising over the horizon seemed to illuminate not only the facades of the buildings, but also the hope that now pulsed within me. In casual conversations with friends and acquaintances, I found myself immersed in an internal conflict. How to reveal the truth I was carrying without fanfare. The lived experience, with its divine encounters and visions of the future, weighed like a responsibility that I could not ignore. One afternoon, sitting in a busy cafe near downtown Denver, Chase approached with a look that mixed concern and admiration. "Zephyr, you look different. I feel like something has changed deeply in you." "What there was?" he asked, his voice full of sincere curiosity. I took a deep breath, remembering the moments lived between light and darkness, and responded with surprising calm. "Chase, I went through an experience that made me understand that life is much more than the search for adrenaline or overcoming physical limits. Now, I see that every scar, every pain, is a teaching. I have a mission entrusted to me, something that goes beyond the two of us or the adventures we used to have." The words came out slowly, as if each syllable needed to be carefully measured so as not to reveal too much. However, within me, a new fire burned, the flame of a commitment that drove me to transform my own pain into a beacon for others. I spent hours reflecting on the divine message, meditating on the approaching spiritual awakening and the role I should take in this new world. Over the next few weeks, I became involved in various community activities. I volunteered at shelters, attended meetings at aid centers, and, discreetly, sought out groups that sought to raise collective consciousness. In each meeting, he sought to convey the idea that life, even in the midst of adversity, carried the potential for transformation. "Change starts from the inside out," I told myself and those who listened to me, with a look that mixed faith and determination. While the scar on my neck reminded me daily of the challenges they saw, it also symbolized resilience and the strength to move forward. In lonely moments, in front of the mirror, I saw not just a physical mark, but proof that I had overcome the edge of the abyss and returned to fulfill a greater destiny. With each passing day, the mission that God had entrusted to me took shape in my actions. I wasn't looking for fame or recognition, but rather the genuine transformation of those around me. I knew that, even if my words remained discreet, they could touch those who, like me, were looking for a greater meaning in life. Thus, with the conviction that spiritual awakening was imminent and that every human being had a role in this change, I made my commitment to be a silent but tireless messenger of a new consciousness. My life, now marked by experiences that defy logic, was in service of a mission that envisioned a future filled with light, hope, and unity. Life took its course, and I, Zephyr Hawthorne, believed I had learned the most profound lessons on my journey of awakening. However, destiny had another encounter with the unknown in store for me, another test that would challenge my faith and courage. At the age of 22, after years of silent and discreet transformations, the time came for a new ordeal, a routine surgery to remove wisdom teeth, which would turn into a near-death experience, renewing my connection with the divine. That day, the Denver hospital exuded an atmosphere of tension and professionalism. I was lying in the recovery room, the room filled with the smell of disinfectant and the constant hum of medical equipment. Despite being used to facing challenges, there was an inexplicable restlessness in my chest. As the anesthetists prepared the procedure, an inner voice alerted me to the possibility that something was not right. "Stay alert, Zephyr," this voice whispered, mixing fear and hope, "because your destiny still has lessons to teach." Soon, the anesthesia began to take effect, and the world around me began to fade away. But, just like the first experience, something extraordinary happened. Amid the threshold between consciousness and oblivion, I felt my spirit let go, floating free from my body, as the doctors fought desperately to revive me. I found myself outside my body again, observing everything as if I were a spectator of a parallel reality. This time, the journey was accompanied by an angel with an imposing presence, who did not resemble the gentle Evan, but a being with a more intense and protective energy. His face, full of authority and compassion, immediately comforted me. "Zephyr," he spoke in a deep, resonant voice, "you are once again at the crossroads between two worlds. Come, for there is more to be revealed." As I followed the angel down an opening corridor of light, I felt as if I was being led by steady hands toward an inevitable destination. The walls seemed to pulse with the energy of countless souls, and each ray of light told a story of struggles and overcoming. Soon, the scene changed, and I found myself in front of a familiar scenario, but now grander. God was waiting for me in a hall that mixed the beauty of the universe with the seriousness of destiny. Before God, my heart raced with a mixture of fear and reverence. His figure, imposing and serene, radiated an energy that filled every corner of the space. As I approached, I felt the soft touch of his hand again, now like a balm that sought to calm the pain and fears that still resided in my soul. "Zephyr," God said firmly, "your journey is not over. This new meeting serves to alert you to the challenges that lie ahead, especially those that will arise with climate change and the conflicts that will shake humanity." I, with a choked voice, asked, "Why me? What is my role in this fight that I still don't fully understand?" God looked at me deeply, and with a serene and fatherly tone, he replied, "You were chosen to be a light in the midst of darkness, to help those who are lost find their way back." His personal challenges, now magnified by this experience, will serve as a beacon for many. But know that transformation requires sacrifices, and the scar you carry is a reminder of the choices that shaped your destiny. With those words, the vision began to slowly dissipate. I felt my spirit being pulled back into my body as doctors worked feverishly to restore my pulse and breathing. The return to consciousness was abrupt, but the memory of that journey stuck with me with the clarity of a dream that cannot be forgotten. As I lay back in the hospital bed, with the sound of the equipment and the relief on the faces of those present, I knew that this new experience solidified my commitment to follow the mission entrusted to me. Each scar, each new vision, was a reminder that my life, although marked by challenges, had a greater purpose: to transform, inspire, and guide humanity towards the light.